Good morning. My name is Susan Reardon. I'm the staff hearing officer, and I call the meeting of Wednesday, May 30th to order. Today we have five items on the agenda, and I haven't received any requests for continuances or postponements, so we'll hear the items in the order they appear on the agenda. Under announcements and appeals, I'm not aware of any announcements, and we've had no appeals. So the next item on the agenda is comments from members of the public pertaining to items not on today's agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on today's agenda? No, seeing no one, we'll go to the first item, which is 917 Paseo Ferrello. Anytime you're ready, Joanne.
Okay. This item is continued from the meeting of May 16, 2012, so that the staff hearing officer could make an site visit of the property to get a better idea of the situation. Basically, the request before you is for modification to allow alterations in the 10-foot interior yard setback, and it's to replace a second-story window with a larger second-story window, and for a punched-out opening with a countertop and barbecue at the second-story deck. Staff is still recommending approval of the project with the condition outlined in the staff report. That's basically, this is the area over here where the alterations are proposed to occur. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Would you like to state your name for the record and provide any additional comments?
Dan Weber, the architect. I don't think I have any additional comments after performing that site visit. I think we saw everything that we need to see and looked at the privacy issues, and so I don't think we've got anything additional.
Okay, great.
I'm not proposing any changes or anything.
Okay, great. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on this item, 917 Paseo Ferrello? No. I would like to note for the record that we received a letter from Ms. Paula Resberry expressing concerns regarding the project. You're more than welcome to look at it. So I'll close the public hearing. Hi, good morning. I don't even want to state your name for the record. It needs to turn on. Actually, turn it off. State your name for the record, and if you have any additional comments, I gave
Good morning.
Dan the option.
I'm Neil DePaula. I'm the property owner, and I don't have any comments this time.
Okay, great. Thank you. I want to thank both of you for meeting me out at the site and allowing me to go into your house and see the existing view. The existing window is about the same location as the proposed window. The existing kitchen window is about in this area, and then this is going to be the new kitchen sink window and then the pop out. At the last hearing, I had a lot of concerns regarding the size of the window, not necessarily a new opening along that side, given that it is a second-story window. It is within the setback. In the majority of the situations, this type of window would not be appropriate within the setback, but I think with the additional information that you provided in the site visit, looking at the topography of the existing site adjacent to the property, it is rather steep. It has a number of constraints, which doesn't mean that it's not. Can you guys in the audience see that? It seems washed out from here. It doesn't seem like you can. Maybe it's just the picture. Looks like he's adjusting it. Well, here's Paseo Ferrello, this outline here, and then here's the existing structure in this area, and then there is a vacant property in this site. And it is very steep. This house is at a significantly higher slope than this house. So given all the parameters and the existing development on the site and the fact that this window actually only approaches at the most maybe a foot into the setback, pushing the window back 1 foot really wouldn't change much in terms of the potential effects to the adjacent property. So I now feel comfortable making the findings outlined in the staff report and approving the relocated window, the enlarged window, and then the new window in the setback, with the conditions that is outlined in the staff report regarding the use of the upper deck area, the proposed deck back here, that this wall here is thick, but there is a little pop out for a barbecue deck, and that all the active uses, including the barbecue area, be outside of the setback.
Thank you.
Yeah, my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those instances would occur, Joanne would contact you. Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
I have my stamp. Thank you. The next item is 2425 Kai Galicia. Good morning.
Hey, this project, as you mentioned, is located at 2425 Kai Galicia. The lot is just over 10,000 square feet, and existing on the lot is a single-family residence. Here is the property. The orange line here shows the setback, and the yellow outline is the existing footprint of the residence. So as you can see, the existing residence encroaches into the front setback and the interior setback on the east side. The proposed project involves single first floor and second floor additions to the single-story residence. The additions would comply with the setback requirements, but as part of that overall addition project, they are proposing some other alterations to the building that require modification approval because they occur within the areas of the home that are encroaching into those two setbacks. So this is just highlighting these areas on the floor plan. Again, the setback lines are shown in orange here. So along the front of the house, they're proposing some window changes that require modification approval for new openings or larger openings here, this bay window here in the living room. And then these two windows, although they're actually pulling back from the street by removing the pop-out bay windows, the opening is slightly larger, so that needs a modification approval, as well as these two new windows on the east elevation in the interior setback, and those are on the first floor. The third request for modification has to do with the change in roof form. As part of this overall project, this is showing the elevations for the new second story and first floor addition. And then in this next page, it highlights the changes in the roof form that require a modification approval because it's changing from a gable roof here above the garage to a hip roof. With that change in roof form, the angles of the roof slightly change just in this area, in this northwest corner of the property, where just the small portion is actually becoming slightly higher within the setback over the current roof form. But as you can see, and as it's explained in the staff report, the overall roof is getting much lower. So in terms of potential view impacts for neighbors or encroachments into the setback, it's overall, staff believes, an improvement. It's just this minor area where the angle of the roof going from a gable to a hip, it results in a slight increase in height in that setback. Yeah, it's showing here.
So it actually improves, it makes it in compliance with our solar access ordinance? Is that what
Yeah,
that's showing?
actually, as it turns out, the northern property line faces the street. So this was
okay.
shown to comply with solar, but it actually is not
okay.
the elevation that, so that was a mistake in the staff report. I realized that later, that the northern property line is actually the street property line. So these requests for modification approval are minor in staff's mind. They are new and slightly enlarged openings in the setbacks, but they are on the first floor. And with the change in topography between this property and the one to the east of it, the windows don't line up. Not looking directly into someone else's window. And it's something that we do want to consider possibly in the future amending the zoning ordinance to allow some of these minor openings within setbacks on the first floor. So with that, staff can support the requested modifications and recommend approval as submitted.
Great, thanks. Do you want to state your name and add anything additional?
My name is Justin Van Mullum. I'm with On Design Architects. I want to thank staff for such a complete report. I think the most important part when I saw this site is kind of going back and looking at the history of how it was developed. And let's see, would be your north. So here's our site right here. And there's kind of a rhythm that happens in the neighborhood, which is there's a lot of properties that are at 22 or 20 feet, depending on if it's a garage or habitable space, straight to the property line. So the front yard setback is pretty consistent in the neighborhood. But what I found was interesting is how they dealt with the slope. What is typically done is you've got one side that's really more of a setback, and then you have another side that goes to this 8 foot. So, like for instance, here we have 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, but on the other side is 16, 12, I think, and 12. So it happens over here as well, where you get this 8 and 16, or like our site right here, we have 8 and 12. So what they're doing is they're adjusting to the topography. They're making room for a retaining wall that happens right in this location, and then there's another retaining wall that happens over on this side. So that's how the setbacks kind of came about, was because of the way the topography kind of dictated how the pads needed to be developed. And then if you look at this right here, which is, you've got basically, these are 2-foot topos, and if this is the center of the pad, and it's too hard, I tried, but it's just too hard to read the finished floors on these. But if you just look at the topography, and usually you cut the pad somewhere close to the middle. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 before I even get to the center of the next. So there's a huge change in elevation between these two pads, which is a nice part of the setback as well. And then as far as the front yard, what we saw is that from the center to here, the original was just over 20% slope. So even in today's code, it could have been reduced down to 25 feet. So there's a lot going on the site as far as constraints, but trying to meet the uniformity. And then some of the other things that we've done. This is how we started. We started with a roof that was a little taller pitch, and what we realized that it was breaking up too much right here. It kind of created this unusual part. This is that north elevation of the street, and we needed a little bit more relief. And so the more that we pushed this roof down as a hip roof, the taller that the eave got into the setback. So, but we're really reducing the mass. You can see the mass that was existing. When you have a tall roof like that, even in this setback right here, this is the setback we're proposing, those 2 windows, and 8 feet from the property line, there was a much larger roof element that was in the setback, and we've taken that out completely and brought it back down. So we've reduced the mass in that area, as we've reduced the mass in this area here. And then if you look, you saw these window boxes that are here. Now these windows are proposed to get slightly larger, but we're trying to keep the windows uniform, and this is the only window that is a possible egress window for that bedroom. So it needs to be just slightly larger. And then we're proposing a bay window in this location, which really doesn't pop out any more than the bay window that's currently here, but is much larger. So we're kind of, plus we've reduced that mass in this area. So we've kind of done some trade-offs here or there to help reduce the impact of our requested modifications. And then we're doing a full landscape in that front area with some larger vegetation that would happen right in this area here. And then our other site plan, there are 2 avocado trees here and here that we're proposing to help reduce the mass in this area and add more privacy. And that we don't have to, these existing windows, they don't need to be, the proposed ones on that one side of the 8-foot setback, they don't need to be egress windows, so we have some flexibility there.
Now, have you thought about doing the clear story windows so they're higher?
We have. There is one of the windows would probably have an ocean view, so, but we could definitely study that. We're open to fixed windows. We're just trying to get really balanced light, and so that's our goal. So any solution that gives us balanced light in those rooms, because what we find, especially in that south room, that you get this a lot of light that's coming in like a projector. And so it kind of blinds you, and it's a little uncomfortable. So to have the 2 sources to balance the light in that small room, that's really our goal.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to answer any questions after comments.
Great, thanks. I'd like to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 2425 Kai Glacia? Seeing no one? I received 2 letters. One was a revised letter from you regarding the additional mods.
Yes.
So the public one was from Ms. Paula Westbury, expressing concerns with the project. I'm not sure if you're interested in looking at it or not.
I did try to read it over.
Yeah. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and visited the surrounding neighborhood, and in regards to the change in the roof, I'm fine with that. I think that's an appropriate improvement. The minor increase in height won't affect anybody off-site. In regards to the windows, the window changes in the front of the house, in the front setback, again, I don't have any concerns with those. I think that's fine. It's an architectural upgrade. It makes the house better. But I do have concerns regarding the 2 new windows in the interior setback. When I was there, standing on the site, like you said, there's a significant grade change. I don't know if you really can tell from these pictures, but here's the house. You can see how this one sits lower. And I was standing on the side, right here, reviewing the plans, trying to get an idea of where the windows would fit in with the house. And then the gentleman that lives next door, he came out of his garage and he's like, "Ooh, hi." I mean, you're right there on top of them. So that's why I was asking the question regarding the clear story windows, if you were open to those, if that would fit in with your design.
Yeah, it would fit into our goal, which is really, like I said, we don't have a requirement from the building department to have egress windows on that side, so they can be any shape, size, height. The goal is just to get some balanced light there. And the clear story windows would create a great bed wall as well.
Okay. So, yeah, that's my only concern. So if you're willing to have that condition placed on the project, I don't think staff's not proposing any other conditions, but that the 2 new windows on this elevation be clear story, just to kind of help with the privacy.
Just to be clear, can we set a minimum or maximum, depending on how you look at it? We only have 8-foot ceilings. So what height would you want the bottom of the sill of the window to be at?
I'm trying to visualize. What would you suggest? What would be
I see. With 8-foot ceilings, you still have to have the size space for a header and a trimmer, and
Right.
and so as you start to come down from that 8 feet,
Yeah, what would be the minimum down from the ceiling from here?
oh, that we could start.
No, that when you take in the header, the window, and that.
6'8" is typical for the top of a window because it matches doors. So that's what the standard is a 6'8" header height. That's where the window would typically go, and that's I believe what we've got shown right here. So we could try to as close as we can match this right here.
So on the inside, how high? What's the bottom ledge from the inside?
Let's see. I think that's at
This
Just-
is the finished floor here.
like 4'8" maybe.
Here I have the.
It's got to be. I think that's close to a 2-foot window.
Because I was trying to visualize with this one. Is it from on the inside? This is still head height looking out.
So here's our finished floor right here. So look at that's 4 feet 8 inches maybe. So right there at the window where you start to see with the glass, it's about 4 feet 8 inches. This one is right here. Really close to 5.
Then if it was 6 to the bottom, how much room would that leave you? So if it was higher.
We could.
How about like 5.5?
5.5. We could probably get 5.5 to work.
Okay, so 5.5 to the bottom of the
5.2
glass.
would be better. I'm just trying to think of how to with our header height and then you start to get this unusual elongated shape of a window that.
Okay, 5. I don't want to make it so strict that if it really doesn't work, staff can't make it work
We
within
don't
the
have
condition.
to. We can work it out. It's more about creating privacy.
Yeah.
The other thing we could do is, if I can't get the proportions to work, we could go with like a privacy glass,
That would work.
and that way we can get the proportions and the light, and it's a fixed window with privacy glass.
So 5.5 or 5.2 with privacy glass? Would
Well,
that
if we're
work
going to
for you?
go up that high, I'd prefer to have it clear glass
Okay.
because it makes the room feel bigger.
Okay. All right. So then the bottom of the glass, 5.2.
Okay.
Or bottom of the window. Okay, so with that added condition, I approve the front yard modification for the change in the height of the roof and the change to the windows, and then the interior setback mod for the new windows.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and they also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period, and if that was to occur, Ms. Brooke would contact you. Okay? Thanks. Good morning. Good morning. The next project. Oh, Justin, here's another letter we received last week from Paula Westbury. Yeah. Yeah. Since it was continued. Next project is 2617 Samarkand.
Kelly Robinson, Assistant Planner. The applicant is also here, Michelle McToldrich, representing the property owners. The lot is 10,900 square feet, and it's located at 2617 San Marcan Drive. It's currently developed with a 1,200 square foot single-family residence and a 392 square foot attached garage. The proposal is to add 217 square feet to the existing residence and a 50 square foot uncovered wood deck. The existing house, it's located in the E3 zone, and the side yard setback is 6 feet. You can see here the setbacks are drawn in, and you can see that the existing house encroaches 1 foot into the setback. It's legally non-conforming. And the applicant is requesting that the addition stay in line with the existing structure and therefore will encroach 1 foot into the interior setback. The total amount of encroachment is 12 square feet, and the modification is being requested to allow the new habitable space to encroach into the setback. Staff supports this encroachment since it allows for an appropriate improvement to the house with only a minor and uniform encroachment into the setback, and because a new window in the north wall was sized and placed to the minimum impacts to the adjacent neighbor. Staff recommends that the staff hearing officer find that the modification is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance, and it's necessary to secure an appropriate improvement on the lot. And that completes staff's presentation, and Ms. McToldrich is here if you have any other questions or to add to the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. You want to state your name for the record and anything additional?
Yeah, my name is Michelle McToldridge. I'm with Shelter Architecture and representing my clients at 2617 Samarkand. I've got 2 additional photos because none represented what was going on between the 2 properties, the neighboring properties.
Yeah, usually we do require adjacent properties, structural non-adjacent properties to be shown on there.
My camera died the day I was out there.
Oh, uh-huh.
But, so we have 2 more.
Okay.
This is the this is our parcel right here in property, and this is an existing window that is there, and this is where the wall will continue out this 12 feet. And this photograph, taken slightly higher up in the yard, shows, the proximity to the neighbors. This is a garage actually, and they kind of face, or they're back to each other, the 2 parcels. By continuing out this direction and keeping it narrow, we keep the building height low because the height does drop as we go this way, which keeps us in conformance with soil ordinances as well as design review. Stays under a single-story height, and it adds some interest to the shape of the whole mass of the new addition. We're proposing some interior remodels. There will be 2 windows, but similar to your previous discussion, these are clear-story windows. They're just vents to provide some light along this north property line, and most of the openings are towards the living space and outdoor areas.
Let me go to the elevation.
These 2 windows. So what we currently have is a larger window, which they keep the blinds down and don't use at all. And neighbors similarly with their garage window has shutters and no one's looking back and forth. But we're proposing these higher windows just to get some light and ventilation, especially for the bathroom, because this is the one room that doesn't have a lot of exterior openings.
Now, what's the bottom quarter inch? The bottom.
Well, we want to pull these up. So we have an 8-2 plate, and I'm assuming I can get a 2x6 header in there. So we'll be able to at least be up 5-6. Okay. Now, the higher we get these, the better, because we actually have our vanity mirrors underneath them. So we're trying to squish them up as much as we can. And these, we also want privacy, and it's really just to bring light in. So they're up as well. And you can see this line here is the floor line, so we could scale it up with that if you'd like.
No, that's fine. All right, and then solar's fine. I know what my questions were. Okay. All right. So is that it?
That is all.
Okay. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 2617 Samarkand Drive? No? I received no letters on this one. Did you receive any? You received none from Paula on this one? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site, and I couldn't get in the backyard. There's a dog that was barking at that. It sounds little, but I'm not gonna I'm not gonna chance it.
Sorry.
That's okay, but I was able to look through, and I actually had the advantage of the pictures that you showed, because, like I said, my main concern is what's on this site and in this area and what kind of potential impacts it would have. And I was also concerned, since they were so close and that this is a north property line, what would it do with shading? But it does comply with our ordinance, it looks like. And yeah, this is well, I saw kind of a mixture because I was able to get down in the bushes. But I believe that it makes complete sense, design-wise and logically, to extend the wall of the building. Instead of jogging it in, that causes a whole host of domino effects that you need to deal with. So in terms of extending the wall, I'm fine with that. The next concern, as I discussed in the other project and with yours, is the window placement. And I really appreciate the thought put into the windows and how they are higher elevation, and I don't believe they have any effect on the neighbors. So I can make the findings outlined in the staff report. Staff's not proposing any conditions, and I don't believe I need to add any additional conditions. So I approve your project. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, like you heard me say on all the other ones. And they also have the oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up. And if that was to happen, Kelly would contact you. Okay?
Great, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Would you like to keep these on?
Oh, we probably should, yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Kelly. Next project's 211 Anacapa Street. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
This project is at 2111 Anacapa Street. The project site is developed with a 1,067 square foot single family residence with attached 300 square foot garage. The lot is approximately 8,000 square feet, and the existing house is not conforming to setbacks on 3 sides. The proposal is for an interior remodel of the kitchen area, and what's before you today is this 12-foot wide new door that's proposed. The interior setback on this side is 10 feet, and the door would encroach 2 feet into that interior setback. So this is the elevation looking from the rear of the property. And what's outlined here is the existing French door, and there's an existing window that would be removed and replaced with this 12-foot wide accordion-style door that would fold out toward the property line. And what's highlighted is the 2-foot encroachment. Also proposed is a landing and step. The zoning ordinance allows for landing and steps to encroach 3 feet into the interior setback, which is what is proposed. So staff is recommending approval of the proposed changes. The new door faces toward the rear of the property. It opens toward the interior property line. Staff does not believe it would be detrimental to the neighbor or visible by the public. This project does require design review by a single family design board. staff has indicated that an administrative approval is appropriate. So if the modification is approved, staff would administratively approve the exterior changes to the building. Staff is also recommending a condition that the existing hedges be reduced to meet the height requirements in the zoning ordinance.
Okay. So this is the only exterior change proposed in this area?
Correct.
Correct.
All right, if you'd like to state your name for the record and add anything additional?
Hi, I'm Tom McMahon. I'm the architect. And outside of the brilliant presentation, we accept the condition of having the hedges trimmed in the front to resolve this successfully.
Okay. I did have one. Well, I can open the public comment first. Is there anyone here who would like to address the staff hearing officer on 2111 Anacapa Street? No? And I didn't receive any letters.
I didn't receive any correspondence.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and visited it, and the contractor was there working, and he came and he showed me the backyard area. So I was able to see the subject area, and I don't have any concerns regarding this window in the setback. It is a door, which doors can be concerning in the setback, but it's when it's on this wall, because you need the lighting to associate with the door and all that, and that causes a whole bunch of issues regarding the neighbors. But this is facing out towards the backyard. It's enlarging, in effect, it's enlarging an existing door. So that's fine. I did have a question. I know what's before me today is only that door setback, but there was talk in the letter regarding the deck. And I just wanted to make a statement that I don't know if you know if the deck's non-conforming or if it's legal or not, but the action today, do you know anything about the deck?
Yes, we did review the records and archives for the property, and staff established that the existing deck is legal non-conforming.
Okay.
So it can remain.
Yeah, so you can be
demolished.
repaired. Yeah, repaired. So that answers that question. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, because I saw it was in your letter, and that I'm not addressing it today, but see if staff knows anything about it.
I appreciate that.
Sure. Okay, so, like I said, I feel that this is an appropriate improvement on the lot. It will cause, I believe, no additional impacts to the neighbors. It's existing, the deck's existing and everything. So I make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve your project, subject to the condition that was proposed by staff, and I don't believe I need to add any additional conditions. And like you heard me say on the other ones, this action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. They also have oversight authority of all my actions, and if they believe this warranted additional discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day period. And if that was to occur, Dan would contact you.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, guys.
The next item is 1924 Emerson. Good morning. Anytime you're ready.
Yeah, so this is 1924 Emerson. This property had a project before a staff hearing officer back in January 2010. There were modifications granted, and the site is currently under construction. It's zoned R2. It's approximately 11,300 square feet. What is before you today is an as-built wall along the northwestern property line that's highlighted in yellow here. That wall is poured in place, concrete with a sandstone cap. Also proposed in the plans is the extension of an existing wall perpendicular to that concrete wall, and a building code standard guardrail would be required on top of that wall. Also shown on the plans is a 2-foot tall sandstone gravity wall in front of the extension of that wall. So this section 3 shows the relationship of these walls. There's a 6-foot setback along this property line. The zoning ordinance has a height limitation of 8 feet for fences, screens, walls, and hedges within setbacks. The zoning ordinance also has a provision that addresses when there's combinations of walls. And the rule is that when 2 walls are within 5 feet of each other, that the height of the wall is additive. So in this case, these 3 walls, each combination of 2 walls is within 5 feet of each other. So it's the cumulative height of the combination of walls. So what's proposed is approximately 13 feet, 10 inches. The site is very steep, and it does drop down toward Emerson. And the proposed gravity wall in the front would provide a planter that would provide screening behind it. This project was reviewed by the Architectural Board of Review with some other elements that changed from its previous review. The Architectural Board of Review indicated that it could support this wall as being as built with these other walls, provided that adequate planting was provided. Staff is recommending a condition that the property line wall be reduced in height by 2 feet from the front of the wall at Emerson to the front face of the building, the plane of the front face of the building behind the patio. And in that section of wall would be a maximum of 8 feet if it was reduced by 2 feet. But again, the combination of walls would make it approximately 12 feet in that location. And the reasoning why staff is supporting a modification as an appropriate improvement here with that reduction is because of the topography and location. Having a wall reduced with the condition would provide privacy between the properties that flatter sites allow property owners to have. So Mr. Leach is here. He actually resides at the neighboring properties supportive of the project. He wrote the applicant letter. And staff does have 2 other conditions. One is that the vegetation be maintained in perpetuity, and I mistakenly indicated that it would be subject to review by a single-family design board. Because there's 2 units on the property, it's actually the Architectural Board of Review. So I do want to make that change. And the final condition is that the air conditioning unit that's shown in the open yard area, the designated open yard area, be relocated, because that's not an allowed improvement in the open yard area unless it's the unit is fully buried underneath grade.
Well, the other thing, the indicated open yard area doesn't meet our standards, does it? Because this isn't 20 feet here, and it's included in part of the open yard area, so it would need to be revised to meet our standards.
That's correct.
And why is, Brian Cornell, why is that don't you have to, as long as you
It's
have 20 by 20, but not
No.
all portions don't have to be 20?
All portions of it.
They do.
All portions.
That's in the R2 where you can have the 20 by 20 areas, but all areas that you're denoting need to have 20 by 20. So this one, since it doesn't go 20 out this way, but you have adequate area. It just needs to be noted right. They're going to include the
Well, yeah,
setbacks.
let me, if I may just segue into that, and then we'll get back to the main
Are you
issue.
done?
Yes.
To me, this basically solves it, is we'll come out here and make, this is 20 by 20, and that should suffice, would it not? As long as this area does not exceed 850 square feet.
Well, the front yard.
Well, I can have up to 850 feet, I believe, within the area of the front yard, as long as it's not in the setback.
So you're in the single-family zone.
It's R2.
This is R2? Oh,
Yeah.
oh yes, then no problem.
Yeah, so
You're right.
so that solves
It
that.
wasn't a PSP I approved, it was
Yeah.
other mods.
So that solves that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so in here, even though, you have all this land area, the area that you actually denote needs to be 20 by 20, but all of this
Yeah.
functions as your open yard.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Okay, so you're done?
Yes.
Would you like to state your name for the record?
Brian Cornell,
Right.
and first thing I want to explain is Ken Jacobson and his wife Hillary really have taken a vintage turn-of-the-century Italianate home here, and I think have just poured their heart and soul into an incredible restoration job. We, as Dan mentioned, we got this approved, and there were a number of mods, but I just wanted to, share with you. This is the photo of this new building, and the care and attention to detail as far as the historic, relationship to this house, and currently going through historic renovation of this house. He's really trying to do a really good job. I do think he may have gotten a little overzealous in dealing with these walls, and in particular this wall in question, which I have some photos of it from this morning. So there is the wall from the other side of Emerson across the street, kind of get the big picture, and this of course shows well the house, and it is a beautiful, simple, classic Italianate, as I mentioned. It's kind of a head-on shot of that wall. This is looking back from across from Jonathan's house, and so we can get a sense of the height of the wall there. And then I just want to clarify, because we took this measurement today, this was a 93-inch dimension, so it's 7 and 3/4 feet. So it is under 8 feet at this point. This ends up extending it down to about 12.5 feet. So that is the actual
Well, from
dimension.
this wall, what's on the other side, because it's from the lowest part of contact, so although this is a
Yes,
straddling
so
thing,
this
so
dimension,
from here to here.
yes, that dimension is, which Dan
should be on
reported, I think,
John's
was
side?
13.5 feet, is actually, the actual dimension we took this morning is 12.5. No, that's not on Jonathan's side. This is on the
Right.
property, the owner's side. So that tape is taken
Right from there, okay.
from there. Now, the reason that this wall really is the height that it is because forever Jonathan and Ken shared a hedge that came out to this point. I realized that the hedge was not technically legal, but the important thing is, you can see I'm standing here in this area of the house. The reason this height is so important is to provide privacy between these two neighbors. And even the recommended proposal, which is to notch this back, is going to basically expose, you can just barely see it in the photo, but this is Jonathan's living room window, and it will basically expose that window to that view. So, exactly. That's exactly right. So, our feeling is on this is that obviously there's several important factors. One is, having gone to the ABR, I think they agreed that as long as the wall is vegetated, that it will basically disappear. And I've obviously shown you the most prominent photos. This is a shot looking down Emerson, and I realize it's probably hard to see just because of the exposure, but that wall is in here somewhere, and it's really, actually I don't know that I can even see it in this case, But I think that's a telling image that when you really are in the context of the neighborhood, and this neighborhood is full of, these kind of relationships because of the nature of the Riviera. To us, having been to the ABR and made the decision about the planning, the fact that there's going to be, I think we provided a little sketch that I did that showed how we're going to have foreground planting in this new planter area, the creeping fig that will grow on this wall. The important criteria to me ought to be the relationship that the mutual neighbors want to achieve, particularly in light of the fact that we don't have anyone who's in the neighborhood complaining about that wall. We have had this neighbor back here raise some issues. I just wanted to give you the recent photo of that. This grade is being raised as we speak, but this wall is not going to exceed the 8-foot requirement when it's all said and done. And so I would respectfully request that you approve the mod, allow for the landscape condition and the planting to mitigate and not impact the two adjacent neighbors where that wall height is really an important privacy feature.
Okay. Did you want to speak now or during public comment?
I'll go ahead and speak now, and if I could have...
Please state your name again.
My name is Jonathan Leach. As Dan indicated, I did prepare the request letter on behalf of the applicant for the modification. And I am,
because I can't write.
and I am the immediate neighbor that shares this property line. And if you look at this photograph, you see this is actually our garage that was built at the same time as the house, turn of the century, sandstone at the street edge. This vertical elevation is about 9.5 feet from the sidewalk. And so the relationship of this wall to the surrounding, even though this is not open soil area so that it could qualify for that, within 5 feet you do not have, or greater than a distance of 5 feet, you have plantings that would allow you to make a different determination. But in fact, our garage roof, if you look at some of these photos, is covered in planted pots that are along the entire edge of this. And we have, on our side, an 18-inch wide planter that if you measure from the surface elevation of the plant material to the top of the wall is within the standard. My belief is that the distance that people are set back from their experience of this wall, which is this entire setback distance, the difference between having a 5-foot planter and what we do have, an 18-inch planter, somebody from the street is not going to be able to ever make that determination that we haven't complied with 5 feet or greater secondary wall to the height of this because we have dense plantings. And the same is going to be true on Ken's side of the wall, where he's already put in the planters, intends to provide the vegetation. So I think that in the general circumstance where, and I understand the principle where you don't want a series of walls that allow somebody to create a monolith which stands well above everything around it. But here we have Ken's house, which is a 2-story structure which well exceeds the elevation of the wall. We have planters on both sides of the wall. We have a commitment to plant and maintain in perpetuity vegetation that would be appropriate for softening of the wall. And the ABR's comment about vegetation, what caught my attention was the chair saying that her biggest concern about this is that the capstone was a different width than the concrete wall itself, and she wanted vegetation so that it didn't look like it was an inappropriate width cap on the wall, not to completely make the wall feature go invisible, but really to deal with the difference in this width of the cap versus the width of the wall itself. I agree with Brian that ABR's mission is dedicated to design and appearance, aesthetics, visuals, and they were satisfied in supporting the wall as built versus making it step down, and I would heartily encourage you to make that finding and remove the condition for a portion of the wall to be reduced by 2 feet.
Okay.
The extent of my comments.
Okay, thanks.
If I could just add one more thing. When we went out there in advance of the ABR review, staff came out, Jaime Limon and
Michelle Bedard.
Michelle came out and looked at it. And at that time, it was suggested what turned out to be exactly the condition that's in here, to cut this down 2 feet and to step it back. And that was discussed at ABR. I feel as if that analysis during that site visit has, obviously taken on a life of its own and carried forward, despite the fact that ABR decided that wasn't a necessary imposition. And I just want to stress here that, at the end of the day, the issue of everyday privacy between these two homes, which these owners completely agree on, is much more important than what I believe is a relatively arbitrary suggestion as far as the stepping of this wall.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing. And seeing no one, I'd like to note that we did get a letter from Ms. Paula Westbury expressing concerns with the project. I don't know if you want to look at it or not. So I'll close the public hearing. I went out to the site and walked around the site and viewed the wall and saw it. I also actually watched the ABR hearing to hear what they had to say, and I don't believe that they wholeheartedly bought off on the wall. They had concerns with the materials and, like you said, the cap, and they wanted to make it clear as long as you totally vegetate it, have the volumes all over, make it disappear, then it will be okay. So I don't think that they said, oh yeah, it's perfect as is. They had reservations regarding the wall.
And we were in complete agreement that the creeping fig is the plant material that will do that job.
Okay.
That'll end up being, when it is mature, which will probably be in less than 5 years, it'll be a full foot
Right.
on the surface of that wall.
Can I see your pictures, Jan? Yeah. In looking at the site, on this side, I realize the neighbors aren't as close, but on this side, the wall does step down nicely. It comes down, follows the grade. And on this side, it is just this solid wall.
Which was by design, mutually agreed to. That's really the reason. I think otherwise, that stepping was obviously intended from an aesthetic standpoint to, address the adjacent neighbors' concerns to the east.
And the neighbor to the east or to the south has a structure that has multiple stories at the back and steps down. So that wall is actually designed for the level of their windows as their building comes down the lot, whereas our two first floor elements are absolutely level. If you look between the two homes, our building pads don't change elevation at all. In fact, the top of our garage defines the bench on which our property sits. And so our floor elevation is absolutely the same relationship to this wall, which is solid. As you walk room to room, you're looking out the window, and the wall is absolutely level with our floor and with our side yard area. So from our standpoint, it doesn't really make sense that all of a sudden when we're in our living room, that a wall that had been completely same now all of a sudden would have a notch, and we would have that view into Ken's portion of Ken's living room area and our side yard. If we had done a 5-6 foot planter to technically achieve the ability to have the wall the height that it is built right now, we wouldn't have a side yard. The situation is both of our properties are built, unfortunately, along this common line. Both of our properties are built at the setback limit, and it's kind of a penalty for them to have done this beautiful historic reservation and to preserve all this oak woodland. Well, the consequence of that is that their house is right up against ours, and so I feel it's appropriate to have, in order to to support and accommodate this wonderful restoration that they're doing and leaving all these mature oak trees, that they be allowed to establish the privacy that we've always had through a hedge that wasn't practical, because by the time you treated it for curly leaf and did the appropriate trimming and maintaining, you wound up with big visible patches through it. So this was a solution that we felt would be more easily maintained, a more assured height. I mean, nothing. The hedge at times was up to 12 feet. So here we're at least establishing, no pun intended, a concrete limit to the elevation of the wall. It's always going to be exactly that.
Okay. Well, I agree with you in terms of the privacy, that the solid wall is creates more privacy than the hedge. But I do agree with staff regarding the appropriateness of the wall continuing out at that height towards the street, that it does need to be reduced some. And I don't believe a 2-foot reduction is going to significantly alter the effect between the two properties.
The thing I would request then is, again, I feel like because the 12 feet was sort of suggested on the job site, I would like to, at least based on the privacy issues that I've denoted here, I would really like that.
So we're talking a distance of how far?
Well, the staff.
That line, this one here.
Yeah, what the staff report said was I believe, was 12 feet, which, puts it at the back of this planter.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that, what happens is when it's at the back of this planter, it completely exposes that window.
Yeah, you're the owner, right? Yeah. You can come up to the, you need to state your name.
You can just keep it.
I was just going to say that there
Can you
is
state your name for the record?
Hillary Jacobson. There is a planter, a pretty large planter in the front yard where we are planning on packing that in with a lot of vegetation. So I think now just seeing the wall from an unfinished perspective, it looks like it might be an abrupt ending to the wall from the street, but that's without any landscaping. So
Yeah, it's often really hard when a project's under construction to visualize it when it's done, and a lot of times, we get comments from publics going, "Oh my God, that's so ugly. What did you do?" And it's
Right.
just like,
It's
wait
just-
till it's
it's
done and it's
unfinished.
finished, and the landscaping, and it'll look a lot different.
So I think this portion of the wall here, we have a large planter out in front of it. We are going to plant up. So I think that portion of the wall won't even be visible from the street by the time the plants are in there.
Okay.
So if staff, against my wishes and our desire here, decides to impose that condition of a step, I would respectfully request that that step not be more than 10 feet back so as to protect the privacy of that window. Because I believe the 12 feet really was arbitrary, and again, the whole intent of this wall was an agreement between two neighbors on what worked best for them. And I think that, I would hope that staff will respect that and allow that wall to retain that height and retain that privacy for that living room window.
Well, it doesn't really matter what staff thinks. No, I'm kidding. I would be open to that kind of,
Compromise.
yeah, that's the word I was looking at. 10 feet is a good reduction, or 10 feet is a good setback. Further back, it'd be a total of 30 feet about 30 feet from the front property line. So yeah, I would be open to changing condition 1 to say 10 feet back from the start of the wall.
I guess my question is, what does that even accomplish? What difference does it make from the street when it's going to be planted out? And
It'll be a lower height. It'll be 2 feet lower, and so it won't be as visible.
I'm proposing that it won't be very visible at all once landscaping
Okay, well,
is in.
we're past the part of additional comments, and it's to my discussion and my decision right now. And so maybe the applicant isn't open to the condition of it changing from 10 feet to 12 feet. You can discuss it with the owner if you want. The option would be for me to approve it the way it is with the 12-foot, and then you can appeal it to the Planning Commission. The other option is I am open to revising the condition to have it only be 10 feet from the end of the wall, reduced to 2 feet. And again, that action is also appealable to the Planning Commission.
Well, I thought
Or
our
if-
preference definitely at this point would be to at least modify the condition to, again, preserve that privacy. And then, Hillary and Ken will have to be the ones to decide if they want to appeal that or not. But I think that, yes, I would respectfully request that you at least modify that condition accordingly.
Okay, and then the third one would be is if the owner is not open to that condition at all, then I would just deny the project, because I wouldn't want to approve a project if the applicant wasn't in agreement with the conditions.
Well, I believe that, again, because Ken Jacobson is not here, obviously I don't want to, in any way prejudice his ability to appeal, but it would be my recommendation that we accept the alternate condition to, again, for the purpose of the privacy, which is the whole reason the wall is the height it is.
And he reviewed this, and he saw this condition, right?
Well, and that yes, and that
So it would
was his
seem if we're
primary.
making it better in terms of allowing
Exactly.
more, that he would still be in agreement with the condition,
Well,
but whether he wants to appeal it.
I would hope so, yes. But
Okay.
I would request that you at least make that that revision to the condition,
Okay.
and we'll hope we don't appeal it.
Okay. So I will do that. I will change condition 1 to, it says, the as-built poured-in-place concrete wall along the northwest property line shall be reduced in height by a minimum of 2 feet for the section between the end of the wall closest to Emerson Avenue and the, well, this is, I'm just going to say from the end of the wall closest to Emerson Avenue, approximately 10 feet.
Yeah.
Or move, and I'll just,
That's what it. That's
because there's
what it is.
several planters
The
there.
scale appears to, the 10 feet is to the
By 10
outside
feet.
edge of that window. So I think that gives, you the maximum setback while still achieving
So
that privacy.
So for the section between the end of the wall closest to Emerson, shall be reduced in height by a minimum of 2 feet for a distance of 10 linear feet from the end of the wall closest to Emerson Avenue. That works.
And then I would suggest that it just say and back 10 feet. Let's just be specific.
I think that's what this says.
Yeah.
The as-built poured-in-place concrete wall along the northwest property line shall be reduced in height by a minimum of 2 feet for a distance of 10 linear feet from the end of the wall closest to Emerson Avenue.
Okay.
And then condition 2 would be revised to reflect it's the ABR versus the SFDB. And then the third one, by redesignating it, it'll still be on there because it can't be in the 1250, but by...
It would be outside of the
Yeah.
open yard.
Okay? So with those revised conditions, I can make the findings outlined in the staff report, and my action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and staff hearing officer appeals are actually filed here at the planning counter. So if you do decide to appeal it, just come here to the counter and submit the fee and the application materials. My action is also, or the Planning Commission also has oversight authority of all my actions, and if they felt this warranted additional discussion before them, they could also call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if that was to occur, Dan would contact you.
All right.
Okay, thanks. I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.